Hello and welcome to the video. This is a video about this thing here. This is the Holystone HS720G. Now I looked at its younger brother, I guess you could call it, or older brother maybe, back in November 2021, and it wasn't a bad flyer, but the big thing it didn't have was a gimbal. Now I've been flying quite a few of these. You can check them out on the YouTube channel. And the big thing that you need is a gimbal, because as you're flying around, you need that gimbal to stabilize the footage so that you get some nice video and images from it. And it also then allows you to do more sophisticated things with it. Now, this is close in price to lots of other quads in this category, including ones from DJI. So I thought, let me get it in and see what modes it does, what you get in the box for your money, and how it actually works. So let me go through all of those things and kind of show you what this thing is capable of. So how the actual drone comes is inside this box, and inside the box is pretty much just this case, and everything else is inside here. And this is a really beautiful case. It has a very kind of soft, almost leathery kind of feel. If we open it up, then all of the pieces are inside. On the top we have the manuals and the other pieces, but let's get into the good stuff. There is this protective piece of foam. I've kept it in here. It's actually designed to support everything with shipping, but it does mean that if you do put anything on top, it isn't squashing anything. So in here we have the battery. Battery is chargeable from a USB connector, which is absolutely fantastic. I am a big fan of that. It has the usual DJI style 4 lights at the back, so you press and hold it to power it on, and then you slide it into the back of the drone to power it on. There's only one of those. It does also have a little foam piece that can go over it so that you can have it in the drone without it actually making contact. One of these batteries is reckoned to give you about 26 minutes of flight time, so if you want to fly for more than that, you're going to need to get yourself another one, because in this kit that I've got here, I only got the one. Takes a couple of hours to charge from a USB charger. A couple of bits of foam that came to protect everything. There is one set of spare props, which is incredibly handy. I haven't broke any of them yet. And then we also have the USB cables for everything, so you can charge stuff and connect stuff. And we have a little screwdriver in there to help you swap the blades out if you don't have one that's small enough. The actual controller itself, keep hold of these. These are really handy to keep it safe, because these sticks on this radio are not removable. They're fixed. And also these things that look like they might be antennas, I cannot see anything in here at all that says that they're actually usable. They just seem to be floppy bits of plastic. I do hate it when they put things like this on models when they actually don't do anything. The holder for the phone that you're going to need to view everything pops out the top, and then you have this kind of spring loaded so it fits in there. Again, it's a good job these aren't antennas, because to be honest, they'd be behind the phone when it's in this position. And then you have little pieces that kind of fold down that act as the handles. In terms of controls, isn't a lot. We have this one doesn't do anything, it's locked. This one is the rotary control to put the gimbal up and down. This one changes you from high, medium and low speed. Even on low speed you can get a reasonable clip. And then we have a button here, short press takes a photo, long press starts and stops recording. Then we have the unlock button, pressing that will start the motors, and then we have the takeoff button and the land button. Quick press will do both. It'll take off and hover about head height. Then we have either mode 1 or mode 2 settings. This is mode 2, so that's your throttle. Increase height, decrease height, turn left and right, and then go left, right, forwards and backwards. This is the power button, and that is your return to home button if you need to it as well. Only one last thing, there's a GPS switch here if you want to turn the GPS stuff off, although I really wouldn't recommend it. So the only thing you need to do on here is kind of plug your phone into the top and power it on. It is powered by 2 AA batteries, so you are going to have to use those. A bit sad about that. It can be nice to have it charged by, USB or something. That isn't an option here. However, it does mean that if you are struggling and the batteries are getting low, it's just a case of popping in another AA's and you're instantly ready to carry on flying. Then we have the main event itself. This is the Holystone drone. Only underneath, the only sensors it has apart from the GPS stuff and the altitude barometers is it has some kind of optical flow sensor here, which does help it stay in position. To open the arms, you open the ones that at the back first, and the other ones fold open. I would say that this feels a little bit plasticky, but it seems to be holding up relatively well. Space for an SD card at the side. When you start recording, it will save the stuff down to your phone that's connected to it to view everything. It's a Wi-Fi connection, but it does save it on here as well, and it does save it into 4K. Battery goes into the back. Let's pop that in there now. And then you have to press and hold the button to power it on. And then to remove the clip for the gimbal, you have to kind of press in on the back and at the front, and then it just kind of lifts off, and then the gimbal is ready to go. And that is about it, really. The gimbal itself feels a little bit sturdier than some others that I've had, and it does do a pretty good job, as you'll see in a moment. So let me clear the table, let's power it up, and I'll connect to it on the phone, and I'll show you the modes. So first thing we'll do is we'll just turn on the receiver or the controller. On here we have information about how many GPS satellites we've got, the height and the distance away. We also have the mode that the controller is in. We have the controller battery status and also the drone battery status as well. And when we're connected, it'll show us whether we're in kind of high or low speed as well. So with that on, what we'll do is we'll press and hold the button at the back, and pressing and holding it will mean that the lights will come on. There we are now connected, and what we would have to do is wait for the GPS. Once the GPS is ready, it'll double beep and you'll see it on here. If you try and take off before the GPS has a lock, it won't let you unless you disable that, but I would always recommend you keep that something turned on, so then your return to home actually works. So it's kind of ready to initialize. There is a status LED at the back. That's about the only one that's on here. When you first power it on, that status LED isn't green. You have to go through the calibration routine. Now, the next thing we have to do then is connect the phone. So what we need to do is go into the Wi-Fi menu on yours and find the network that starts with something like Holystone. So mine says Holystone. There we go, and we will connect. Now, there's no password or anything like that. The only other thing I would recommend that you do is go into your mobile network, mobile data, and turn off your mobile data. The reason for that is I've had problems getting this all to work before I did that. The application that you want is something called Ophelia Fly. The other version of this, the previous version that didn't have the gimbal, used Ophelia Go. So we go Ophelia Fly, it'll then say enter device, it'll flick, there we go, and we now have access. And you can see here there is a little bit of lag on the video. It's a Wi-Fi connection which also limits range, but that is how it works. So let's zoom in on this a little bit and I'll give you a quick whistle stop tour of this interface and the modes. So here's the interface. It looked very familiar to those of you that have flown something like this before. All of the modes are available over here. There are 3 modes available. I'll show you them in a moment. Follow me, point of interest, where it will basically orbit around something, and headless mode, which means that irrespective of the way that drone is flying, it'll always behave as though it is hovering with the tail towards you. That's great for a beginner. However, all of the settings are actually under this top right hand corner here, this little cog icon, I guess. Big tip here is when you get it, it'll be in beginner mode, and that means that unfortunately not everything is going to work as the way you want it. I would recommend take it out of beginner mode as job 1, and then you can actually set everything for how you want it. You can change whether or not you want metric or whether or not you want the British system, i.e. feet. So I've got it set for British, and in here you can set the orbit in feet. You can have it really small, 16 feet, where it'll actually orbit in a very tight circle, or you can have it a little bit further out, how far you can fly, how high you can fly, and the return to home altitude as well. You can set that all on here. In here as well, you can also do the calibration of the compass. Really, really important, I would say, to do that. It'll make you do it when the first time you power it on, but I would go through the process. All you do is you click Start Calibration, turn it round 3 times horizontally, then it'll tell you to do it vertically, and you'll be good. If you're ever in a situation where you go to fly and rather than hover in one place, it's hovering around a big circle, it's because the compass needs calibrating. So then let's talk about the different flight modes, the ones that we actually have. So the first one is Follow Me. Now Follow Me is a pretty classic mode. What it's doing is using the GPS location of the phone that's connected on the top of the controller, and it's following you around. Big tip with this is make sure that it's kind of pointing at you already. Make sure the gimbal's kind of pointing in the right direction. It'll try and maintain the same kind of distance and altitude, and you can just stroll around. It's very good when you're walking around. You can get some really good shots. It'll follow you like a faithful dog. However, when you turn around and start walking to it, it'll also back away as well, which makes it really easy for some really, really pretty video. Point of interest is the ability to go round in a circle. Again, this one needs a little bit of practice so that it actually orbits around the piece that you want it to, i.e. that's probably going to be you or a friend. So this one won't orbit around you. If you start moving, it won't carry on, but it means that if you want, say you're, I don't know, on the top of a mountain or something, and that you want it to orbit around the peak and show you kind of stood there triumphantly, that will absolutely do it. And again, that will allow you to change things via the settings, things like the actual distance that you can orbit around. You can actually change it in here, and then it will get the kind of shot that you want. Last mode is headless mode, and that is one that is great for a beginner. It means that you don't have to take into account that it might be pointing in a completely different direction. So in summary, there's a lot of things that I like about this thing. I like the fact that it has the addition of the gimbal. I think if you're going to be buying one of these kind of flying camera drones, a gimbal is pretty much a necessity unless you are prepared to put up with lots of moving around when you're trying to do video. I like the fact it has a 4K camera. That is great. It also means that you can zoom in on stuff and not lose all of the resolution. And then I like the fact that you have the case and also things like the spare props in the case too. So far I haven't managed to damage the props on this one, but it's good to have spares in case something bad happens. I really love the fact that the flying battery is chargeable from a USB port. That is great. No wacky chargers that you need to carry around. If you have a USB charger, you can just plug that in and away it goes. Sad that there's only one battery in the box, but that does mean that you can charge it literally anywhere. And I do like the fact that these things are available from Amazon, which does make it an awful lot easier to return stuff than kind of buying stuff from China, where if you have a problem with it, you're pretty much stuck. A couple of things to be aware of. First and foremost is you need to turn off beginner mode in the app, as we looked at just now. With beginner mode, you can't do very much at all, so turning that off will allow you to actually fly further away and do all the things that you're probably expecting to do. I know my very first Holystone drone, I got caught out by that, so it's something that I do by default when I first go into the settings. Other big tip is if you are connecting to this, again, if you're connecting to the Wi-Fi access point for the video, for the app on the phone, then it does help if you turn off mobile data. I found that was a big difference for me. Turning off mobile data meant that the app went from not working at all to working beautifully. In terms of the controller's okay. I'm not sure why they've put pretend antennas on the top. I can't see any wires going into them, and I don't particularly like the Holystone design where those antennas will be behind the back of your phone anyway, where they would be completely covered. And the other thing as well is the sticks on the remotes aren't removable, they're fixed. So you do need to keep hold of those little kind of gimbal protectors that you get in the box when you put it all away to stop them getting smushed. Single battery in the pack, so if you want to fly for longer than 20-26 minutes, you're going to need another battery. And also watch out for the removal of the gimbal protector. It's a little bit fiddly. There's a little catch at the top and at the bottom. If you squeeze them together, then the gimbal will come out. Just be aware of that. The whole gimbal protector thing on this is a little bit sturdy, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but the first time you're taking it apart, it does feel like you're potentially breaking something, particularly as some of the bits are under the sticker that kind of tries to explain how to do it. And the last thing, of course, is that it'll only work with phones that work on the 802.11ac protocol, so do make sure that your phone supports that. And again, big tip for me was turning off mobile data to play with it. Now, DJI pilots out there will compare this to something like the DJI Mavic Mini. If you do, then you'll see that the Holybro has less range. It's kind of 1 kilometer versus 4 kilometers for the DJI. The DJI has about another 6 minutes advertised flight time, has a built-in HDR mode, cinema mode, and a few other small things too. But in summary, this is a decent beginner camera drone with some basic modes that work very well. Lack of decent yaw stabilization is the only thing that kind of bugged me with it. The image stabilization does work very well when you're moving around, but when you're yawing, it can be a little bit jarring. So with a bit of practice, you can get some really nice shots out of this. Thank you for spending your time today watching that video. You can find me in all the usual places on social media, and if you're trying to learn about a subject, then check out the playlist. All of my videos are organized into easy to follow playlists that if you're trying to learn a topic will take you from the basics right the way through to some pretty advanced stuff.